this finger out of my hole. I've been walking the road too damn long. I'm a cripple and a riddle with doubt. I need to get the finger out.
Hello everybody and welcome to Get the Finger Out podcast, brought to you by your host, me, Daryl. How are you doing today? I'm doing average enough. I'm in Donegal. As you can see, I'm not with my usual black background, but if you're just listening, then that doesn't really matter to you at all. I'd just like to say before I start the podcast that thank you for everybody that's been sharing everything, and thank you for everybody that's liking stuff and rating the podcast. I would say if it's your first time listening, then maybe go back a little bit to understand a bit more about me. Basically this podcast, I basically talk about myself and talk about my dealings with mental health and addictions and trying to figure it out. It's sort of an ongoing thing. When I started the podcast, I got up to about three and a half months sober, something like that. And then something bad happened, which I talked about all last week. I talked about relapsing, and today I still haven't touched a drop and don't plan on it. So I'm doing well in that sense, and I'm quite happy about it. I'm just dealing with all the other shit that goes with alcoholism at the minute. So I think in this episode I have some backup stuff to talk about in case I run out of stuff to say, but in this moment right now I'm feeling quite shit, not feeling my best, and I was basically not going to do the podcast. I was going to say, fuck it, I feel shit, I'll just do nothing. And then I just said to myself, why not do it now? Why not do it when I'm in the moment? Every other podcast I do, it's basically when I've had time to process a bad moment or something like that. Whereas right now I'm in a bad moment. So I'm just going to talk about it because, as I said before as well, this podcast is my therapy and hopefully help somebody else, by me talking about my own shit. So yeah, at the moment I'm sober like a week and a half, I think. What day is today? Tuesday. So yeah, I'm sober a week and a half, and I've got my life back together. I was drunk for 5 days and I fucked everything up, and I've patched things up with friends and family and partner and stuff, and I guess I've just been feeling quite a few different things. I've been feeling insecure, I've been feeling paranoid, I've been feeling up and down, so in terms of like right now, I'm in Donegal and it's my partner's birthday, and happy birthday to her as well. And I'm starting to feel a bit like a useless cunt, So my partner's away to spend some time with her family on her birthday, and because I'm afraid that there'll be drinks there or my anxiety or whatever, I've decided not to go. And also because I needed to do the podcast, but I could have went if I chose to, but I've decided against the idea. And rationally, that's the best option for me. I'm only a week and a half sober again. All the hard work I put in has not been completely undone. I think in another couple of weeks I'll be back to where I was, but I feel that just imagine yourself, it's your partner's birthday and she's away to have fun on her birthday, and you can't go because you have a problem, and rationally I know it's the right decision to make for me and keeping me away from having a full-blown anxiety attack or exploding and or leaving early and ruining her night, by leaving early or whatever. So I've decided to stay here by myself in Donegal, But even though my rational brain is telling me it's the right decision, the selfish, childish part of me is thinking, why me? You know, why does she want to do that to me? Leave me alone, you know? And I understand that. So I guess I'll talk a little bit about what I've learnt about alcoholism, because everybody thinks, people that don't know, it's hard to it's hard to explain to anybody who's not an alcoholic anyway, but everybody thinks alcoholism means you have an addiction to alcohol and you just stay away from alcohol, and then if you see drink, you might drink it or whatever. And that might be true for some people, but for most people I know, it's not about that. Of course, you want to avoid putting yourself in situations where you're near alcohol and stuff, but for me, that doesn't affect me. Like there's a bottle of gin about 2 meters from me right now. You know, there's wine in the fridge. You know, I'm not going to drink that. Definitely not. I would definitely ruin my life if I did that right now. But my point is, it's not like if you had like a sex addiction and then you seen a naked person and then you go, oh, I want to have sex. You know, alcoholism, basically, the alcohol is the symptom of the disease. The actual disease is a disease of thinking. And, you know, I personally believe, it's my opinion, I could be wrong, that everybody suffers from that in some kind of way. Some people are addicted to working. Some people, you know, eat too much food. Everybody has like a vice. Not everybody, but a lot of people have a vice. And the reason they use that vice is they're unable to sit with their thoughts. They're unable to sit still. They're, you know, if you were sitting in a room with nothing to do, no phone, no person to talk to, just in a room, then your thoughts would get the better of you and you'd be like, fuck, I need to eat some sugary food, or I need to go like watch porn, or I need to go to the pub, or whatever the vices be. And I believe personally, some people might disagree with me, that alcoholism is just another addiction, just like all the other addictions. The problem with alcohol is, and other class A drugs and stuff, is once you actually do the addiction, like you use your vice, so alcohol, then your inhibitions are gone, and then you'll do it more and more and more. Same with the likes of, like, I don't know many heroin addicts, but I assume, you know, when you start to come off the heroin, you go into withdrawal quite quickly. You know, if you get drunk one night, you don't go into withdrawal, you just get hungover. But for most alcoholics, you know, because you've drank in the morning in the past, then you've forged a pathway in your brain where that is the most comfortable, easiest thing to do. In your subconscious, you're just in the morning, wake up, hungover, oh shit, I should drink again, and blah blah blah. But they say it's a disease of thinking, and the reason being is all these negative thoughts are spiraling around my brain, and one minute I might be thinking, oh, I'm useless, I'm terrible. The next minute I'll be thinking, you know, oh, I'd like a biscuit. And the next minute you'll be thinking, oh, maybe I should have a drink. Maybe if I had a drink in moderation, or maybe, and then the next thought will be like, no, that's stupid, you've done that before, that's terrible. And the next thought will be like, well, you can't drink, then maybe you should try magic mushrooms. No, and then it's like, no, and just continual thoughts. So like the solution, I guess, is to slow that brain down. I mean, that's what happened in rehab and everything, which was basically you go in and for a week you've nothing to do except talk to each other, and read books and stuff like that there, and that just slows the brain right down, that the thoughts aren't going crazy, and then the actual therapy can take place. Because if you go into a therapist with a brain that's racing and you're just talking blah 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 blah, which I've done with my counsellor, where I just go in and talk about one thing for 5 minutes, really really fast speaking, and then the next second I'm talking about something else, and it doesn't give that person an idea of what's relevant and what's not, and they're trying to like write stuff down or take notes or whatever, and it's all over the place. Kind of like me right now on the podcast. It's just because I'm freebasing it, I'm freewheeling it, I'm freebasing it. So my girlfriend's away, she's enjoying herself, and in my head I'm thinking, so I know rationally that it's her birthday and she wants to spend time with her family, but then my little inner child, my little selfish person inside is saying she doesn't care about me, I'm useless, one side of me thinks, oh, she doesn't care about me, and then another side of me thinks, you're doing the right thing but can't help feelings of uselessness, and I guess the disease is a disease of selfishness as well, where it's all about me, and there's many different thoughts of where alcoholism comes from, of whether it's a genetic thing or whether it's a learnt thing or whether it's to do with your environmental surroundings and everything like that. And I personally believe it's a mix of everything. I don't think you have a gene in you that, some people have plenty of like alcoholics in their family, and then, usually at least one person in the family throughout the generations ends up being addicted to alcohol or something as well. I don't believe there's a gene in you that says, oh, you're addicted to alcohol, but I do believe there's a gene in you that leaves you very prone to being addicted to alcohol. So I don't believe the gene actually, you wake up as a baby and if there's a bottle of vodka you go, meh, I'm fucking hooked. I just believe that there's a gene in you that leaves you prone to being addicted to something, maybe. And then environmental wise, depending on that person's life, that person might discover cannabis or weed first, or that person might discover ecstasy or cocaine, or that person might just love eating food. And I guess what I'm trying to say is there's maybe a gene of addiction in the blood. I don't believe it's a gene of specifically alcohol, I don't think the genes carry that much information, but that's just my thought. But I also believe, I think it's actually scientifically proven. I've heard a podcast or something about it before, about like generational trauma, and of course anybody my age would have been born round the tail end of the Troubles in Northern Ireland. The Troubles in Northern Ireland, for anybody who doesn't know, is just when there was just bombs going off everywhere and people being shot, and just like a big religious war. And funny, I talk about that. It's the 11th of July today, which is the Protestant night where everybody burns a big bonfire. And a lot of the Catholic people get out of the way and go to Donegal. Now, I didn't go to Donegal to get out of the way of that. Normally I play music in pubs, that it doesn't really bother me. I'm not religious in any sense or bigoted, or to be honest, if I see anybody being super bigoted on either side, I judge that person. Of course people make jokes and stuff, which is, I guess it isn't the greatest thing to forward towards a solution, but it's not as bad as somebody who's actually truly bigoted, but I'm going away off course. So I just have this feeling of uselessness, and to be honest, I felt like crying earlier, but I held a brave face, and I didn't want my girlfriend to feel bad. She feels bad leaving me anyway, but I didn't want to make her feel worse by, being like, murr, murr. And I guess it's a self-pitying thing, and this is another trait of alcoholics. A lot of alcoholics, I'll not say everyone, is pitying yourself, getting stuck in this thing, poor me, And I guess the way around it is to just talk it out, and you know, if you can't talk it out, go for a walk or get it out of your head. For me, it's this podcast right now, which is why I decided to do it. I'm already, we're only about 10-15 minutes in, and I'm already feeling a lot better by just talking about it. Because just before I done the podcast, I was sitting there. There's an AA meeting I want to go to at 8 o'clock, and I started doing the podcast. So before 7, I said I'll leave myself an hour. So if I do it before 7, then I'll have the podcast done, and then I can do my AA meeting, and then that's lots of therapy, and then I'll be happy. But and then I said no, and then I sat in self-pity. I smoked a cigarette, I drank a cup of tea, and then, you know, it was 10 past 7, and then I said fuck it, I'll do the podcast anyway and join the AA meeting late because I need to do it. And so this like self-pity thing is just, I don't understand where it comes from. But it just seems to be evident in so many alcoholics, and to get rid of it, I guess, is just talking and trying to snap out of it and just accepting it. Acceptance is a big thing for me this week. So this week I've had some advice from lots of different people, and some of the advice I took on. So the first bit of advice was to basically make every day count, you know. And we've all heard this before, live every day like it's your last and blah blah blah. But you shouldn't like live each day like it's your last, because if it was my last day on earth, I would most certainly be getting pissed drunk, probably taking heroin and whatever else I can get my hands on. I'd probably go fucking blow up something or something, you know. So don't live like it's your last day on earth, but make every day count. And that was really good advice to me. And the guy that said it to me said, like, if you're lying on a hospital bed and you're dying from like alcoholism, but for anybody who's not got a drink problem, which is a lot of people that listen to the podcast, even if you're just lying, just as normal life advice, you know, if you're lying sick, nobody ever thinks a bad thing's going to happen to them, and then it does, and then the next thing you could be lying in hospital and you could be sick, you could be fucking terminally sick, you could have fucking cancer, you could have, you know, an autoimmune disease, I'm not going to go through problems that you could have, but you could be, 1 minute you could be living your life normal, and then the next day something happens, you collapse in the middle of the day, wake up in a hospital, and you're told you've got a week to live. And that could happen to any of us at any time. Or, God forbid, you could fucking be walking across the road and a big bus could come and hit you and you're just dead and you didn't even know it was coming. So, you know, when that man said to me, you know, if you're lying in a hospital bed, sitting up there, you dying or whatever, you will look back and you will wish with all your heart and soul that you could do all the wee stupid small things. And this is something that's been helping me this past week with procrastination. Like, I am a big procrastinator, as I've mentioned before in the podcast. You know, I get the big things done sometimes, a lot of the time, but I usually leave it to the last minute. I have a mild idea that I might have some form of ADHD, because I done a silly test online and it said you should definitely go and see and get diagnosed. But I mean, with other people with ADHD, they're always moving and stuff when they're sitting, and I do that a lot with like my toes and stuff, you know, so no one can see me, but I can sit still as well. And sometimes when I don't sit still, it's because I have this back problem as well, which I haven't talked about before, but maybe I'll talk about it later. But where was I? So yeah, make every day count, you know. And that's been great advice for me this past week. You know, I've been about to retreat to bed and go, bed, Netflix, there's a bar, Galaxy. And then I've heard that bit of advice coming into my head, make each day count. Because if you make each day count, then when it comes to time to actually lying in bed at the end of the day, you know, whether you go to bed at 8 o'clock, I usually jump into bed around 8 o'clock and eat dinner. And I know it's a late dinner and probably should eat earlier than that, but it's just the way my schedule works with my partner at the moment. But when you jump into bed at the end of having a day that you actually made that day count and tried, to do things, then it's been great, But the other bit of advice, not advice, just sort of lesson that I've been learning is just to accept things, and just accept. And I have to accept, I guess in today's situation where the partner's away and stuff and I feel bad about myself, I just have to accept that. And the old me, without being aware of these thoughts and emotions and my own thought process and my own disease, without having the awareness of that, the old me would turn into a little bitch. I would start huffing. I would try to make her feel bad about leaving me. I would go into silent. I would give her silent treatment until she's like, is everything okay? And I'd be like, yeah, it's okay, yeah. And I'd just be a little bitch about it, and that's me self-pitying, and that's me trying to make somebody else feel bad and blaming other people, mainly blaming her. Like, imagine that, blaming my girlfriend on her birthday that she wants to go and spend time with her family and have a beer. The old me would do that 100%, without a doubt. But I am aware of that I like to call that my disease, that is part of my disease. And, as I said, alcohol is a symptom of alcoholism. The disease is the actual thinking, and then it leads to drinking. And then once you drink, then that's you fucked. Then you're going to drink until the binge is over, and some people don't come back from that shit, I'm glad my last binge only lasted 5 days. So the disease of thinking, and me in that situation, the old me would act like a little bitch. But yes, so having the awareness around that now, I have to accept that I am the problem. It is not anybody else around me. I have to accept that it's me, and I can't change other people. I can't change her. I can try. I could probably, if I really, really tried, I could change her decision to go. But then, number one, she'll resent me because I've stopped her from having fun on her birthday. And number two, it'll just make everything shit, and it'll make me in turn feel worse about myself, because then after I get what I want, then I feel bad and guilty and I'll internalize that guilt as shame, and then my self-esteem will just not build, So even though I feel a bit useless now for being like, fuck's sake, my girlfriend can't even bring me, to be with her family or be drinking alcohol or be around people drinking alcohol, I know in a few months' time, when I get back to where I was before I relapsed, I will be able to do that, and it'll all be fine. And today is just one little day in the I don't know how many days you live. I don't know how many days you live in your life. I was about to say your hundreds of thousands of days, and I was like, I think I read one time that it was less than that, but I don't know how many. Hold on, maybe I should search it right now. No, I can't. Maybe I'll do it in my head. So 365 days a year. I think I'll die at like 70. So 3,650 multiplied by 7, 3 7s, 21. So yeah, you're only going to live like 21,000 days in your life, but that's one in 21,000, which is, I'm not even going to work out the percentage, but it's a minuscule day. And as a result of, I don't like to use the word man up because it's related to toxic masculinity and stuff, and I feel that affects a lot of men today. But for me, and I'm just talking about me, I do need to man up. I'm just using that term loosely. I'm not saying like men don't cry and men need to blah blah blah, all that toxic masculinity stuff. I'm just saying, let's just say beefing up, harden up. I'll just say I need to harden up. I need to harden up and get through today, because today is only one day, and when I go to sleep tonight and wake up and my girlfriend comes back tomorrow, I'm going to feel good. I'm going to feel good because I didn't drink, number one. Number two, she'll probably have a hangover, so I'll feel a wee bit good about that. Sorry, baby. Number three, I will feel good that I overcame these feelings, and not only overcame them, I sat with the feeling, you know, I sat with it. And that's a big thing I'm learning at the minute as well, is I've started reading a little bit of this book, or the audio book of a book called Letting Go, and it kind of filters into stuff I'm learning in AA and stuff I've learnt on various other books that I've read or listened to. And in rehab as well, you know, like the big thing there, and you hear it in the gym as well, no pain, no gain. The big thing is not avoiding your feelings, or your thoughts are insane, but actual feelings, not to avoid them, to sit with them and feel the pain, you know. I just did a thing before this podcast as well. I don't think it's working for me yet, but I think it worked for me the other day, and it was basically, I'm reading that book, Letting Go, and then I've only read a little bit, or listened to a little bit, because it's an audio book. But then I went on TikTok to, you know, because I'm always looking the easiest way, the shortcut. And I went on TikTok to find out like the actual method to doing it, you know, and it's a long process and stuff, but people have this quick thing in TikTok, and I tried it the other day, and it's basically closing your eyes and you're sort of meditating, you're just focusing on your breath, and then you feel in your body where you're feeling the pain. So say you're feeling quite stressed or whatever, or anxious, and you feel it in your stomach. I, for one, the other day was feeling quite insecure and useless again, and paranoid, and, you know, I'll not go into what it was about, but basically I could feel I could feel it. It wasn't like a pain, it was like a pressure in my head, you know. And these things can manifest for different people as like a pain in their back, you know, a stiffness, a intensity, a headache, a knotting stomach, whatever. For me, it was in my head, and I felt this pressure in my head. So what I done, following this TikTok video, I just started closing my eyes and breathing, focusing on the breath, and then I brought my attention to where I felt the pain. And what the video told me to do was to just watch the pain, you know, watch the pain. When thoughts come into my head like, oh, I'm feeling this pain because of this, or it like this, no, delete, just go, thought, that's a thought, I'll label that as a thought, and I'll come to you later, brush it off, and just keep the attention with it. Don't judge it, just stay with it and hold it. And I did that for about 5-10 minutes, something like that there. And it did start to reside. And as the actual physical aspect of the emotion left me, then I couldn't really feel the emotion. I felt less insecure, I felt less paranoid, I felt less fucked up. So that's something I'm going to start practicing. I'll probably read a bit more about it as well. I should probably read the actual book that it come from. But I did it earlier there before the podcast, but then my dog started barking, and my attention was distracted, and I couldn't really get on with it, you know. So yeah, so tomorrow I will feel better, you know. I'm starting to feel a little bit better already, because that brings me to the other thing, you know. When I feel like this, it feels like it's gonna be forever, you know. And I guess that it's like slightly like, now I haven't been clinically depressed before. I've in no way making depression seem less for anybody that actually suffers from proper depression. I don't know if I do or not. I've never really went to a doctor. I done an online test again one time, and it said I'm mildly depressed. But I would say, like most of my depression, if I get any, well, of course I get it. Everybody gets depressed, but I don't mean depression in the clinical sense, is what I'm trying to say. But you know, I was feeling depressed earlier. You know, I was feeling, I'm useless. Why me? Poor me. And you know, yeah. So that's where I was. It's like it. You think in the moment. I think in the moment. I'm not thinking that, oh, this will end soon. I'm just stuck in it. Just going, ugh. I'm just stuck in a loop, you know, a loop of thoughts, I guess it is. And I guess that's why something like going for a walk or something like that there can sort of clear your head a bit and get you out of that negative thought loop, you know, which is what I was in earlier. And to be fully honest, I still have to refresh the page every 30 minutes. To be fully honest, since starting, it's been 30 minutes now, and I do feel better, you know, I do feel a bit better. And I'm excited to do my AA meeting after this, and it's gonna be good, you know. But to be fully honest, I'd probably only do this podcast for another 15 minutes or so, because I do want to get to that meeting. I normally do an hour, but I'll probably cut this one short. I was going to go into a song that I like the lyrics of, and I was going to go through all the lyrics and blah blah blah, but I don't know, would that make a boring podcast? Would that be good? Do you prefer me to just talk from the heart, or would you like me to maybe go into things that I've researched? I don't know, let me know, because I don't know what you guys like, you know. There's only a certain amount of people actually communicating with me, but there's about 200 people every week listening to me, so please send me a private message. Let me know what you like about the podcast, what you don't like. I won't be offended, and that would help me make the podcast better. You know, I am still always going to talk about my feelings and how I'm getting on with the alcoholism and blah blah blah, but there's a lot of space there to do, you know, to build and make the podcast better, and it would be great to have your input. So please make contact with me, you know. It's only 200 people. I'm able to reply to everybody. I mean, if you're somebody that I've known in the past and maybe we haven't got along or something like that there, or you whatever, throw that aside. It doesn't fucking matter. If you're contacting me to talk about my podcast, I fucking love you and I want to talk to you. And if you're somebody that wants to talk even about depression, alcoholism, anxiety, anything, I'm always there to talk. You know, if the podcast ever did actually blow up, I wouldn't be there able to talk to everybody, but at the moment there's only about 200 listeners a week, so there you go. And it would be great to get some feedback from people. So, and rate the fucking thing, please rate the fucking thing, because that would be awesome. But I'll just go on and talk about one or two more bits of advice or realizations I've had this week that have been helping me. And the other one, and this may come across as a bit sexist, but it's not sexist, and well, it's basically in terms of, it's not sexist, there's a book years ago published called Why Men Are From Mars and Women Are From Venus. And it's just basically talking about how men and women are different. And some people might disagree, and that's fair enough. And I'm not saying what I'm saying is fact. I'm just saying what I've learnt and what I believe to be true. And if I'm wrong, sure, write a comment or something about it. But anyway, the whole point from what I got from that book, I only read some of it and I got it summarised and stuff. But it was basically that when women have problems, they want to talk about their problems, and when men have problems they want to find solutions to the problems, whereas women, I guess, find solutions through talking it out with their friends, you know, whereas lads say what's wrong and then the other guy goes, why didn't you do this, why didn't you do that, and then you're like, fuck no, I tried that by, and then it's like, and basically men are looking for solutions and women are looking to just talk it out, you know, just to vent. And that was a bit of advice I got. I've heard that as advice millions of times before, but it was a bit of advice I got off somebody one time there, and I'm aware that I might sound like a prick saying this, like, so I apologise if anybody does, especially the girlfriend, but what I have noticed by just listening to my partner, or, well, I don't listen to any other women vent, but my partner, it does work, you know. If I just, instead of me suggesting solutions to her problems, so she's like, oh god, this happened and blah blah blah, and fuck's sake and blah blah blah, and like the old me, the normal me would go, well, why don't you just do this here? So it's an illogical. It's irrational for you to feel bad right now. That's what I'm thinking in my head, and I'm wrong, you know, because I feel bad when I'm fucking yapping about my problems, you know. But I'm offering solutions. I'm saying, and I'm not offering them in a good way, I suppose, because I've maybe heard, because I don't want to listen to the negativity so much that I will react almost even. You know, I'm maybe not just, you know, offering advice, solution. I'm maybe reacting with the solution as if to say, you know, implying to her that your problem is stupid, you're stupid, don't stop crying and just, I'm not saying she's crying, I'm just saying, you know, quit your whinging and fucking listen to my solution, and I am the man and I know everything and I will mansplain this to you and blah blah blah. And now I've I've just started listening, you know. I've just started listening, and she tells me her problem, tells me the problem, and then I go, right, okay, yeah, you know. And I don't mean listen as in go, oh yeah, oh aye, whatever, aye, you know, and not be listening. I mean actually listening, you know. And this is the basis of all counselling as well, is listening, you know. You go to a counsellor, any counsellor that talks for more than 20-30% of the time is not a proper counsellor, because counsellors are meant to listen. That's the whole point. But anyway, so by listening to my partner, it helps her come up with a solution herself, and she does it all by herself without me getting in an argument or anything we got there. I just listen, go right. If she needs comfort, if she needs reassurance, I will give that to her, and then she says, right, I think I'll just do this, and then boom, problem solved. Whereas the old me would be like, so let's just come up with a situation. I don't want to use a real situation because I don't want to intrude on my partner's privacy, but let's just say her I'm trying to think of something, and I know I think of something completely fucking ridiculous because I'm a fucking madman, but let's just say that her next door neighbour's dog keeps shitting in her grass. Okay, so she has a dog next door. By the way, if any of my neighbours hear this, in no way, your dog's not shitting in our grass, and I hope my dog doesn't shit in your grass. But so the next door neighbour's dog is shitting in the grass, and it's happening every day. My girlfriend goes out, stands in it on her way to work, and then she like scoops it up and has to clean her shoe before work, and she comes home and she's like, fuck's sake. Then the next week happens 3 times, and then she comes into me. I'm having a bad day, sitting there drinking my coffee, smoking my cigarette, but fuck all to do during the week, yapping about my own problems in my own head, and she says, fuck's sake, that fucking dog next door has shat in the garden again. Those neighbours, why won't they like pick up the poo, or why won't they stop letting their dog near my garden and shitting there so I ruin my shoes before work and blah blah blah. And then I turn around, so the old me would turn around and say, well, why don't you just go and knock the door then? You know, why don't you just go and knock their door and explain to them, I've seen your dog shitting in the garden and blah blah blah, and then they will say sorry, and then problem solved, it won't happen again. Better still, and then my ego will kick into play. I am a man. I'll go and fucking talk to them, and I'll fucking tell them, and I'll blah blah blah. And then this is how funny my ego is. I'll be like that to my girlfriend in this hypothetical situation. I'll be like, I'll fucking show them, trying to act like I'm a big, strong, angry man, and thinking that's attractive, you know. Maybe it is to some women. I don't think my girlfriend thinks it's attractive if I go around acting like a prick, knocking neighbours' doors and screaming at them. But anyways, I walk over to the neighbour's door and I tell her I'm going to act like that. But then when I get to the door, I'm like, excuse me, hi, I'm really sorry, but your dog, I think, has been, defecating in my garden, and my girlfriend's studying it, and I was just wondering if it would be okay with you if you could maybe just not do that. And that's like the little people pleaser in me. You know, I'm pleasing that person by not being an asshole about it, and then I'm pleasing my girlfriend by, well, I think I'm pleasing her with my crazy fucking ego, where I'm acting like a fucking a man or whatever. Because my idea of a man is somebody who's angry like that through no fault of how I've been like brought up in school and parents and blah blah blah, and you think that, you know, a lot of men do think that, and that's why they go out and fucking, you know, their ego gets insulted in a nightclub when they have a few drinks in them, and then they start fights, and then somebody ends up in a hospital, somebody ends up in a police cell, and blah blah blah. I'll not get into that. Thank God I've never been there in fights and stuff like that when I was drinking. Thank God. Probably had a few people want to punch the head of me, but that's another big realization I've had recently is I must have something watching over me, because if you're not an alcoholic and you don't get that fucked up when you're drinking, then you can only imagine the fucked up shit I do when I'm drunk. Like, I'll not get into it right now. It's kind of embarrassing, and my self-esteem isn't that high at the moment, and I'm working on building it. But maybe in a couple of weeks I'll talk about something that's, you know, well, I've already said shit on the podcast anyway. But you know, anyway, I'll not talk about that right now. It's embarrassing, and my self-esteem's not great at the moment. But so my point is, the girlfriend comes in and the dog and blah blah blah, and I'm just like, why don't you just go next door, or I'll go next door, and all that stuff, you know. And that doesn't cause the solution, you know. That ends up either having an angry neighbour, and then there's friction with the neighbour, and then anytime you walk past them you feel annoyed and weird and self-conscious and blah blah blah. You want to be friends with your neighbours. It's shit having bad neighbours. And so the flip side of it is, if that was today, and realising that women like to be listened to, in my opinion, and if any ladies want to correct me if I'm wrong, or put their 2 cents in the comments under the podcast or whatever, please go ahead. You know, I'm in no way, you know, saying what I say is fact or anything like that. I'm just going by my experience and my opinion at the moment. Could be changed, whatever. Anyway, I sit and listen to her. She's like, fuck's sake, that fucking dog, I've sat in the shit and blah blah blah. And I'm like, oh man. So I'm just going to sound like a fake person right now, because it's not how I would actually just go, oh man, oh shit. But let's just use words, you know, just for the sake of the hypothetical situation. I say, oh baby, or oh baby, oh, well, I call my girlfriend baby, so I'm just gonna say, oh baby, that's terrible. Oh, that must be so shit. Yeah, no pun intended. You have to clean the shit again. That's bad, you know. And then I just listen to her, and she vents, and then once the initial reactive anger is out of her, then she'll be like, should I go and talk to them? Maybe I should. And then I can offer my 2 cents and be like, hey, maybe we should talk to them. Do you want me to come with you, or do you want to do it alone, or what? And that's me being a man. That's me being a man by saying, I'll stand beside you while you talk to them, you know, or I'll go talk to them if you want me to talk to them. But, you know, she needs to resolve her own problem with the neighbour or whatever. I'm going way off into hypothetical land too much here, but it's good crack anyway. I enjoy it. So that's a wee lesson I've sort of learnt recently, which is just helping me in relationships and stuff. And another thing I've realised, you know, I always have this thing when I get sober. It always happens to me where I start getting really ambitious. And I think that ambition comes from the addiction, the alcoholism, and it's basically me wanting things, you know. I want to have a new business idea, I want to buy a new widescreen TV, I want this, I want that. And I can't remember, I think I talked about this last week, but I'll just like elaborate a little more on it. But basically, I just want more things, because I don't have my normal thing, my medicine, my alcohol, the thing that makes all the bad thoughts go away and make me just think funny stuff and blah 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 until I get mindlessly drunk. But I want more things, so I want more money. I'll maybe like start saving money. Like fuck, I'll go into Tesco's or Lidl's or whatever, and they'll be like, you know, one item will be like £1.50 and the next item will be, or something I need but I don't need will be cost money, and I'll just say I'll not buy that, and then I'll start not paying money for like necessities, you know, like I'll buy the shittest toilet roll just because I'm like, I'm saving money, but then I'll save all that money to buy something like an Apple Watch. And that's something I forgot to say in last week's podcast. I sold my Apple Watch when I was drunk. I met some fucking guy on the street and he brought me to a pawn shop, and I told him to help me sell it, because it was hard to sell it without it being unlinked from my account and blah blah blah. I don't really remember what was happening, but I sold the Apple Watch. That thing cost me like £350, and I didn't need it. I never used it. I used it once or twice when I first got it, when I was getting into running and stuff. But really that was another ego thing of just like, oh, I want to clock my runs so I can post them on Facebook and let everybody know how far I'm running, you know. So it always sat in the drawer, you know. I never used it. I would put it on every so often, and then once the charge died, I'd just fucking set it down. I couldn't be bothered charging it all the time. I didn't need it at all. It's a fucking complete pointless piece of shit. Some people enjoy them, whatever, if you enjoy them, but not for me. But so the point is, the thing was 350 quid, I think it was 370 quid actually. It was, at the time, I think it was a year ago or whatever, it was like the best one, and I bought it on that fucking Klarna app where you pay now, like pay a third of it now and pay a third in a month and pay the last third in another month. And I think I still haven't paid that because I'm in loads of debt at the moment. But that's another thing I could talk about. But in terms of that watch, I sold it for fucking, I think it was like 60 quid or 60 or 70 or 80 or something like that. And then I gave the guy that was helping me like 20 quid just to get more alcohol in that madness. So that was another lesson I learnt, is the insanity of alcoholism isn't what you're doing when you're drinking. It's not like taking your dick out in a bar. It's not starting a fucking fist fight. It's not selling your Apple Watch for 60 quid at like fucking, is that 10%, 20% of its value? You know, it's not all the crazy stupid shit. It's not getting drunk and waking up in fucking a different city. I've done that before. Fucking got drunk in Amsterdam, woke up in The Hague, either Rotterdam or The Hague. It was the opposite side of the fucking country. Don't know what happened there. But no, it's not. That's not the insanity of alcoholism. That's shit that happens to anybody when they get drunk. Anybody that drinks too much booze and they're a bit insane in that moment, you know, that'll happen to anybody. Your great grandmother could fucking do the stupidest shit in the world. Your great grandmother could, if she's alive, most people's great grandmothers aren't alive, but your grandmother could get drunk and stand on a table in a moment of madness when she's drunk and fall off the table and break her arm and then decide to not go to hospital because she wants to drink another glass of wine or something like that. You know, anybody can do any insane shit. My point is, the insanity of alcoholism is when all the bad shit has happened over and over again, like it has in my life for the last 15 years. Just all the bad things in my life have always happened as a result of alcohol. And telling myself I'm off it, I'm done, I'm never touch a drink again. And the insanity is deciding, oh sure, I'll just have one tonight, or 10 or 20 or whatever. That's the insanity. After having the knowledge in my head of all the bad shit that's happened, that I am a fucking full-blown alcoholic, can't drink no matter what. My body's pretty much allergic to the stuff. It doesn't process it the same as normal people's bodies do. But yet I'll decide, like I did a week and a half ago, my whole life's going fine, blah blah blah, and no, I'll just drink. You know, that's the insanity of alcoholism. So that's the sort of thing I learnt this week as well. It's totally insane. So I'm going to finish off now because I think that AA meeting has started. I'll talk next week maybe. Actually, for next week I'm really going to try and get a guest. I have a few technical requirements I need to, because I'm shooting this on an iPhone, I need to get like other people's iPhones, because I want to have 3 shots. I want to do it real professionally, so that we have a shot of me and the guest, a close-up of me and close-up of the guest, and then I can get editing and mix that all together and it'll look cool and effective. So I just need to get that planning right, but I am going to try next week, really try to get a guest episode, because I think that would be really good. Excuse me, it'd be good for you to get a bit of variation. I like to vary the podcast. This week you got me in Donegal again, but next week I'd definitely like to try and get a guest. So all you guests that I've been talking to, expect me to contact 1 or 2 of you. And yeah, that's the other place. I can shoot it at home, or there's 2 different places I could rent out, 2 different theatres, but then that costs money and blah blah blah, and I have stuff to pay this weekend. Anyway, that's just my thoughts going crazy again. I'll just cut it short now, and thank you for listening. This has been just a bit of a off the cuff episode, but I needed it. I feel better, so thank you for listening, and I'll see you next week. Please rate the podcast. Get the finger out.
I need to get this finger out of my hole. I've been walking the road too damn long. I'm a cripple and a riddle with doubt. I need to get the